So good morning. My name is Becky Hall. We're both co-founders here at the Nevada Science Center. I'm the Director of Education, and this is Dr. Josh Bonde.
Hi, and I'm the Director of Research here.
So thank you for joining us today. It's our kickoff to Nevada Reading Week. So we wanted to share with you a little bit how reading has been important in our lives since we were younger and how we use reading today. So.
Yeah, so getting started as a paleontologist, I was kind of always interested in dinosaurs, and my parents kind of fostered that entertainment in dinosaurs. And so when I actually still have some of my original dinosaur books from when I was a kid. So these are, I'm sure, way out of date by now. So these are books I read as a kid that I've held on to through all the years. So in the time of the dinosaurs, so you can still see like dinosaurs in their old out of date postures, kind of standing straight up. But it was reading like this that inspired me to become a paleontologist. And now we have books that are still here at the Science Center.
So we're also, besides paleontologists, we're both parents. So we have newer books, like this nice Dr. Seuss book, which makes reading fun. So we read these to our children. This, oh, say, can you say dinosaur? So it goes through a whole bunch of different dinosaurs in this book as well. So from learning or reading with your parents or learning how to read, it sparked, like Josh said, it sparks an interest. And then it never stops going through school. And then as researchers, we're constantly reading to learn about our discoveries. So the first book I'll talk about is like the Encyclopedia of Dinosaurs. So it's called the Dinosauria. It's a big fat book, kind of beat up. We have a couple copies of it. So when we're heading out and we have a discovery, so some of our fossils are behind us. So we have a dinosaur bone here, a couple dinosaur bones here. So the first thing we do is we might find a bone. So here is a bone that was in some sandstone. That light might be too bright. I'm gonna tone that down a little bit. So you can kind of see in this rock, we have this shape right here. So this is a backbone. A little right here. There's a couple of them. Here's some sandstone in between. Here's a couple of backbones. So these belong to a hadrosaur. So one of these little critters, right? So they were like plant eaters of the Cretaceous. And I didn't know what dinosaur these belonged to until I got them back to the lab where we are here today in Henderson, Nevada. That's right outside Las Vegas is where we'll find Henderson. And so after I bring those bones back, I'll open a page to this big encyclopedia. You can see a little note from my kiddo. You can see they have different bones and descriptions. So these are whole, and there's some backbones right there. So this is how we figure out what the bone belongs to. So the first thing as paleontologists, we have a fun discovery and we have to decide what bone it is. So what part of the body it comes from. And then we can come back and we can look at those books to figure out what dinosaur left them. So as researchers, we try to contribute to science. So we're doing our research to add to more knowledge of our past, right? So we can either share with other scientists, and we like to share with other people, the public. So as scientists, we'll write scientific journals, which are peer-reviewed, so other scientists read them to make sure we did our science right, and then they get published. And then we can also have fun books that spark interest in younger or adults into paleontology. So I'll let Josh talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Becky said there's two different types of reading and writing that we do as scientists. So the first type, and probably the most significant that people think about, is technical reading and technical writing. So there are these technical journals like the Journal of Paleontology. So this is where all the original science goes into. And so there's articles in here. These are technical articles, technical illustrations that we as professional scientists have to learn how to read these types of journals. And if you're an aspiring scientist or if you're at the high school, college level, you probably have to dig at least a little bit into things like this to do your research papers. It's sometimes can be dry, but it's also important in terms of reading, but you never stop reading because a big part of our jobs. Yeah, we get to go out, we get to go camping, dig up dinosaurs and stuff like this. But like Becky said, when we come back, we have to read about our discoveries in order to figure out why they're important, why they're significant, if it's a new species, cool things like that. So that's the technical aspect of being a paleontologist when it comes to reading and writing. In terms of, it'd be fun if we could just go out and do the science, but another fun part is telling the public about what we discovered. If what we're doing we don't share with the public, then it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. So paleontologists written books for the public like this. This is Digging Dinosaurs by one of my mentors, Jack Horner. So this is his story written for the general public about discovery of the first dinosaur eggs in all of North America. And so he tells the whole story in this book about the science of the discovery, going through the whole peer review process, doing the technical writing, and all that fun stuff. Another book along those lines about sharing the science of what we do with the public, written by my friend Dick Hilton, The Dinosaurs and Other Mesozoic Reptiles of California. So these are books that kind of synthesize or bring together or review all the cool dinosaurs and other interesting animals that lived during the age of dinosaurs in the entire state of California. So these are ways that paleontologists try to convey the information that we do technically to the general public. Another fun book that just came out, Cruising the Fossil Coastline by Kirk Johnson, who's the director of the Smithsonian, and Ray Troll, who's a paleo artist. So when we go flip through this book, you can see things like the geologic timescale. The geologic timescale is kind of a hard phenomenon for lots of people to grasp if you're not a geologist or a paleontologist. And it's going through trying to make things like deep time understandable for the general public. You might think like maybe 100 years is really old. Maybe you have a relative that's 100 years old if you're lucky, or in terms of the human lifespan, that's a long time. But in terms of the Earth is billions of years old. And so that's thousands of millions of years old. And so illustrations like this try to synthesize billions of years of time so that we as people can understand it.
Sure, let's do it.
All right. So let's do some show and tell. All right, so one of our projects that we're working on through the Nevada Science Center is on gomphotheres. So I'm going to use this book again because it does such a good job. We're looking at the family tree of elephants. And so here are African elephants, Asian elephants. Asian elephants are actually really close cousins of mammoths. And so that's them here. You may have heard of mastodons. Those are down here. So distant cousins of mammoths and elephants. And then we have gomphotheres, which are over here, another weird cousin on the elephant family tree. So if we come over here, this is a 15 million year old gomphothere skull that was excavated in far western Nevada, just west of the town of Tonopah in Esmeralda County. So we take a close look here. This thing is upside down. This is the hard palate. So if you lick the roof of your mouth, that's the equivalent part of this animal here. This is a tooth. It's completely worn flat, which tells us this animal was pretty old when it passed away. And if I turn it a little bit, these are the tusks still in the socket. So we wouldn't even know what this animal was or how significant it was if we didn't read about gomphotheres. Maybe that's a new term for you in terms of fossils, but this really cool evolutionary branch of four-tusked elephant-like animals. So two tusks on the top, two tusks on the chin. That's kind of what typifies this group. And these guys actually were one of the more successful groups of elephants that lived in Asia, Africa, Europe, North America, and were the only elephants to actually make it into South America as well. So they're actually really widespread. But again, things that we wouldn't know about this really interesting group of animals if it wasn't for reading about them and having references like this for the general public. So paleontology is a really inclusive field. So it incorporates all sorts of different science fields.
So I'll take it from here. So like Josh was saying, paleontology is an interdisciplinary field. So we don't just study paleontology. Paleontology, we're researching animals or past life or living animals, plants, in the rock record. So we have a lot of biology that we study, a lot of geology we study, and then other fields of science like chemistry, physics, things like that. So I'll go through a couple maybe reference books. So again, you have big textbooks that you get in college, like a biology book or a geology book. We're going back to like the general public to get you interested. So that maybe you don't think of chemistry when you think of paleontology, but we do deal with chemistry. So rocks and minerals. Our minerals are made out of different elements. We do radiocarbon dating to figure out how old rocks are. So looking at isotopes. So here's carbon. You can see there's a diamond, right? So all things living have carbon in it. So chemistry is very important. We got calcium. So you can see there's a skull. So although fossils aren't, you know, modern or bone anymore, they're mineralized bones, it's still important that bone is hard material. So soft material is not going to get preserved. We do have some soft body fossils here in the lab. We have some maggots, but most those are very, very rare. We have to have something hard so to get fossilized. So bone is a great example of being able to get mineralized. Another aspect of paleontology might be paleogeography. So what the, no, I got it. So what the Earth looked like maybe when the dinosaurs were living. So here's a globe of today, right? We all know what Earth looked like today. So there are scientists who recreate Earth from Earth's history. So this is back in the Cretaceous. This is Ron Blakely's textbook. And you can see how this is the breakup of Pangea. So when we have a supercontinent breaking up into kind of what it the modern configuration of the continents today. So paleogeography is also a very important aspect of our work. So shoot back to you.
Yeah, so these are just some of the references and articles that we wanted to share with you guys today. And we're happy to answer questions and do some show and tell of some of the research that we're doing here that involves doing active research around the state of Nevada. We work on anything from organisms that are up to 500 million years old or 500 million years old, all the way up to about 10,000 years old. So we're here for you.
We have a few questions. Yeah, we have a few questions from students. So I'll go ahead and I'll read some of these questions. So we have some of our friends here in Nevada. They want to know, what is the oldest discovery that either of you guys have ever discovered in the field?
Do we do trilobites?
Sure.
All right, let's go see.
Oh, you have it with you. That's
yeah,
awesome.
We could use a little show and tell with it, right? Makes it a little bit better. I'll let you do that one.
All right, so this is a trilobite. So I'll try to get it up here by the camera. So this is about 530 million years old. It was found just north of the town of Goldfield in Esmeralda County, south of Tonopah along the 95. If you're from Nevada, the US 95 corridor. So this is the head. This is the segments of the body here. And I don't know if I can get it on the camera quite clear enough, but when we reopen to the world after COVID and all that fun stuff, you want to come visit this specimen. It's actually preserved well enough you can actually see where the blood vessels were in its head. So this thing is over 500 million years old from right here in the Silver State.
All right, so going back to the time scale, because it's really hard to like picture how old these fossils are. So here, we're up here, this is modern, right? These fossils came all the way from the Cambrian, so 500 million years ago. So that's where we get trilobites from.
There are fossils from Nevada which are older. Also, for Esmeralda County is one of the least populous counties in the state of Nevada, but for what it lacks in people, it makes up for in fossils. So there are some fossils that are about 200 million years older than these trilobites that also come from that. So if you're interested in the oldest fossils from the state of Nevada, those are about 700 million years old.
Now, what was the first discovery? One of the kids wants to know, what was the first discovery either of you guys ever found in the field when you began your career?
Okay, I'll take that one first. So one of the very first things I did was the author who did that Dinosaurs of California book. I used to go out on digs with him when I was undergrad at the University of Nevada, Reno. And one of the first digs we did was Mastodon, which is another one of those elephant-like cousins. It was about 3 million years old, that came from just outside of the town of Gardnerville, which is about 20 miles south of Carson City. So that was the first thing I dug up starting my career.
So the first fossils I found were kind of like the trilobites and some other marine corals. So up at Mount Charleston is a mountain that sits over Las Vegas. You'll find some corals, kind of hard to see, but things like that, shells that you find in limestones. But the first bigger discovery was probably the dinosaur out of Eureka, Nevada, so that's central Nevada. It's still in the ground, so we still have to excavate it, but I do have little pieces of it. Let's see. Trying to find a good piece. Here's a big chunk of it. So we took this piece out of the off the site just because we didn't want it to because we had to cover it up so we could dig it up later, so we didn't want it to get ruined. So we brought a little chunk back. But this doesn't tell us much, right? We can tell it's a big dinosaur because it's just a chunk of the bone. But going back to the encyclopedia, there's nothing distinguishable on this chunk of bone that tells us what animal or what dinosaur it came from. But we do know it's a dinosaur because it's in Cretaceous rocks. And we know it's big because it's still in the ground, but we just don't know what it is. But this one is exciting because we don't know what it is. And it's a big dinosaur still in the ground that we have to excavate. So this was my first dinosaur I discovered, and really looking forward to excavating it.
It sounds like a fun scavenger hunt, a really long scavenger hunt. So the students want to know, there's a few more questions, then we'll let you guys go, but they want to know what is Jurassic, Triassic, and Cretaceous mean?
So those are Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous are the 3 time periods of the Mesozoic era. So we have the book. So the geologic timescale is broken up into eons. And so eons are the biggest periods of time. So we live in the Phanerozoic eon. So here's the Mesozoic era. And then the Mesozoic era is broken down then into the Triassic, which is the oldest, the Jurassic, which is the middle part of the Mesozoic or age of dinosaurs, and then the Cretaceous. So the Triassic and Jurassic are named after places where they were first described, like the Jura Mountains of Europe are where the Jurassic comes from. And Cretaceous actually comes from the Greek word kreta, which means chalk. And so rocks of this age from Europe are chalk cliffs of southern England, northern France. And so that's where that name comes from. It's chalk rocks.
Interesting. And I just learned this. I know we have a lot of students in Italy here in northern Italy. Fun fact, ichthyosaurs, which we have, my understanding, we have those here in Nevada. Ichthyosaurs. There you go. They have those in northern Italy as well. So we have that in common with Nevada and northern Italy. Awesome. One of the kids, they want to know, what is the process in becoming a paleontologist?
All right. So I'll go, it can be different. There's not a straight course or a straight line in paleontology. Like I said, it's interdisciplinary. So first of all, it's studying what you'll need to know to become a good paleontologist, which is a lot of biology and geology. So some people study more geology, some more biology, kind of depends on what branch you're going to go into. But for me, I studied both geology and biology, and then as an undergraduate, and then you'll want to go on to graduate school. I'm in my master's program. Josh earned his PhD. So it depends on what you want to do as a career afterwards. You can go into like museums, being a professor, private consulting. So there's a whole bunch of work. So it kind of just depends on what you want to do as a paleontologist.
My advice to aspiring paleontologists is to read. So it's timely. Like this is reading week. When I was in middle school to high school and I was like I said, a dinosaur nerd at the time. I grabbed my hands on every single book that was even remotely related to geology, biology, dinosaurs, paleontology. The more you read, the more you learn. I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. So the more reading you can get under your belt, the better prepared you'll be when it comes time to actually figure out what you want to do with your career. If you want to be a paleontologist, that's awesome. Read those biology books, those geology books. You got to be good at both if you want to be a good paleontologist.
That's some great advice. And before we let you guys go, I'll let each of you guys answer this before we say goodbye. What dinosaur books do you recommend for the elementary kids, and what dinosaur books do you recommend for the high school kids?
For the elementary kids, there's some books that have been released by the Museum of the Rockies. I would go there first. There's some good paleontology books that are designed for elementary school and that are grade appropriate. There's also some books that have been published by the Society of Vertebrate Paleontology. If you go to vertpaleo.org, there are some dinosaur, again, age-appropriate books for those grade levels. For the high school levels, I would suggest popular books like the one I showed earlier, like Digging Dinosaurs. This is a good place to start. There's also a book that was written in the 1980s by Bob Bacher called The Dinosaur Heresies. So reading these popular books by PhD paleontologists, that would be a good place to start if you're a high school level. And it's written at a level that a high schooler should be able to comprehend.
I thought that was good. Mm-hmm. And just being interested, have students explore themselves in a library or online material that, even like the Dr. Seuss books or like the Danny the Dinosaurs, like those are always fun to read and get you interested. It might not be scientifically, informative, but just getting anyone interested into a science, that's where it kind of starts.
And if you're a teacher and you want to vet a book past us, you could email us at the Science Center. We'd be happy to let you know if that book's appropriate or not, or scientifically accurate or not.